I remember watching this one TV show Nick called Babar. It's basically about Babar being king of the elephants and king of this one civilization town called Celestville. This show was popular around the 90s, and most people I have met watched it even growing up in the 90s. Some who grew up in the early 2000s remembered this show. This was definitely one of the shows I remember growing up back when I was a kid. It's definitely got a really great place in my heart. Now, the TV series of Babar, I honestly really remember watching. The show started its first episode back in 1989. So since I was a kid in the 90s, I remember watching it. It basically, involves Babar, recounts his life and adventures in this adaptation of the movie. However, though, the show had been continuing on for a while. Although there is a spin-off sequel series called Babar: The Adventures of Badu, but honestly, I just prefer the original series. Of course, they had another later season where they go on this hot air balloon ride adventures and that's in the later episodes of this show. Now, I'm just going to talk about this one episode that I remember watching as a kid. It was called Witch's Potion. That episode always gave me a little bit uneasiness. What I mean by that is this episode involves, well, Babar and Celeste's daughter Flora getting bitten by a snake, and this is when her brothers, Alexander as well as Palm, believe in then go to this witch's place that lives by the gorge. Now, that episode used to scare me, but really unnerved me as a kid. But as I got older, honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Well, since I'm a nerd, I was into more computer stuff when I got older and more advanced. I started looking at computer stuff, and I've been into hacking and stuff like that. I've gotten pretty good at it. And it was honestly one of my favorite things to do when I was working on the computer. However, though, here's this one thing I discovered. I was online on Town. Of course, the site has changed, but I went to use the Wayback Machine to see if I can watch the older shows that used to air on it. However, I got to the site and everything looked normal. However, I ended up deciding to see if I can watch some clips of Babar, since I felt like I wanted to relieve some nostalgic moments of being a kid. I went through a couple episodes, and most of them I've watched were pretty good. However, there was a few episodes I did like of Babar, but this one in particular I really enjoyed called Witch's Potion. And I'm going to give a little bit of context as to what this episode is about, in case for anyone who has not seen the episode or don't remember it. It basically came out in 1990, so it was a really older episode. Basically, it's about Victor taking Palm and Alexander to the dark forest across the gorge, where a real witch named Winifred lives. However, when Florida secretly follows them, she's led to a snake known to be pretty much poisonous, and of course, she goes unconscious. But however, it was up to Alexander to get Winifred to save her life. So that's basically what the episode is about. However, the Winifred was the only episode, though, that she ever had. However, though, this was definitely one episode I will never forget. So, to be the complete honest, the episode was pretty interesting, and however, it's pretty cool for what this episode really is. Although it does get a little bit creepy and unsettling. Now, as I was watching some episodes of it of Babar and other shows that came out in the 90s that were playing on Tree Town, I came across this one episode in particular. I apparently clicked on it and it was Witch's Potion, but This episode wasn't as what I remember. Basically, the episode involves Alexander and Palm talking with Victor, and Victor explains where he knows where a real witch lives. He basically takes them to the witch's place across the gorge and stuff, and Victor also mentions that there were some snakes inside. However, though, they go into the witch's place property and they caused a little bit of damage. Once it caused a little bit of ruckus there, the witch ends up screeching like if she was in constant pain. This scares them and they run back, only running into Flora, who happened to follow them. Now, Flora goes into one patch of grass while the boys try to warn her not to go there, but she ends up getting bitten by the purple night shadow snake. She passes out, and this is when they ended up bringing her back home. Of course, since she's been passed out, Palm and Alexander just hoped that Flora would be okay. However, the doctor said that there is no known cure for the poison from the purple night shadow. However, though, Alexander decides to venture off on his own to go and get the witch. He gets the witch, and they end up going back to Celesteville. However, though, this is what I don't understand or don't remember, is this was honestly not as I remember from the original episode. You know, the original episode, Winifred cures Flora, but however, though, by the time Alexander returned, Celeste and Babar were crying, and it's later revealed that Alexander was too late. Flora was already dead. Due to the snake venom bite, she ended up couldn't fight it anymore due to this, so that was honestly one of the most saddest endings I've ever seen. I know Treehouse doesn't air episodes like this or any kids program like that, as they would traumatize kids, and that's not what their intention or anything. I ended up seeing the end credits, which only it showed with pretty much before the end credits was Flora being buried. That was pretty much all I could remember, but then the episode ended. I wish I could have saved it on my hard drive, but since this was back a couple years ago, I could not remember much about what I should have done. However, I at one point tried to see if I could download the video and save it in my USB, but the file for some reason would not let me. Every time I tried to download it, I would just get that error. I don't know why. I tried everything, but that was just that. However, the next day when I got a USB, I decided to see if I can watch this episode again, and so I can maybe question the people who made Babar if this episode was just made for a prank, or maybe this was just an episode that was too scary for kids or too unnerving. However, though, when I went back to the site to find the episode, the alternative version of Witch's Potion, I couldn't find it. I literally could not find it anywhere. I tried everything. I tried looking for the episode of it online, but there was no mention of the alternative episode, just the original episode, and that was it. Honestly, still to this day, I am still confused as to why this episode was never aired. Maybe this original version was supposed to maybe kill off Flora, but this is just one question I don't understand. I have not watched Babar in a long time since that day, but at the same time, I've always wondered if Treehouse was even hesitant to air this episode when it was made due to constant fear of people with snakes. Of course, we do have poisonous snakes in the world, but what I can't really understand is why would this episode suddenly vanish when I tried to download it but I couldn't? Maybe the creator already took it down by the time I wanted to download it. That honestly could be one of the very possible answers I could come up with. If I ever were to find this episode again, I'll be sure to maybe provide screenshots or at least some form of evidence so I can show you guys that I'm not going insanely crazy.